I'm going to turn my.
Okay, and then in 1 minute, will you let everyone in, please? I have to share my screen. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight.
Howdy.
I'm going to give everybody just a couple of minutes to join us. While we are waiting, you can scan the QR codes on your screen to join the Activism Alliance Slack, where many like-minded activist groups are coordinating and sharing information, and for group chat and action planning between meetings. You can visit our website, solidaritywarriors.org, where you can become a member. You can also text JOIN to 315-904-3671 to join our rapid response mailing and text list for urgent actions. If you're already a part of our Slack discussion place, next time you're in there, please go to the social channel and click on the Welcome Activist link at the top of the window for a list of best practices in Slack and a new rundown of which channels are used for what. I want to say welcome everyone to the Solidarity Warriors Indivisible meeting. We're so glad that you're here tonight. We're an action-oriented national nonprofit group that is part of the Indivisible network. Many Indivisible leaders and members are on this call so that we can organize together and learn from each other. If this is your first time here, welcome. Our meeting ground rules are, I'm going to put these in the chat. Be respectful to your fellow activists. All are welcome here, except Nazis and fascists, of course. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. To raise your hand, go to the bottom of your Zoom window and you'll see a raise hand button, or click on reactions and you'll find a raise hand button there. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking and turn on your video if you feel comfortable doing that. Feel free to use the chat for any questions or comments. Please save questions until the end of the current speaker. When we open the discussion for Q&A, please keep your questions and comments to 3 minutes or less to give others a chance to speak. We are a nonviolent group. We do not advocate violence, and we do not tolerate talk of violence in this meeting. I'm going to put a lot of links in the chat tonight. They are hyperlinks, meaning you just click on the words and it will take you to the website. I'll also send out all of these links in the follow-up email tomorrow. Tonight, we're going to talk about the mass mobilization of Indivisible and 5051 members across the country on April 5th. Next, we'll talk about Schumer's decision to vote against his party and allow the GOP funding bill to pass. And we'll follow this up with an open discussion. Before we get into things, I wanted to let you know that all of the backlogged orders for our resistance stickers are going out this week. We've had a huge amount of interest, and we are so glad our message of resistance is spreading nationwide. Thank you so much for your patience. You should receive them in the next 1 to 2 weeks. If you haven't already, you can order them through the link in the chat. Donations are not required, but it helps if you chip in at least a few bucks to help us cover the cost of the weatherproof stickers and postage. Donations also help us protect vulnerable communities and put pressure on politicians. Some quick Colorado housekeeping before we get started. Our next event in Colorado is the Indivisible Resist Cookie Social in Denver. On March 30th from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., we'll be having a cookie contest and social gathering in Denver. And I'm going to put a link in the chat where you can RSVP. And you can join us to meet like-minded people and enjoy some good food and cookies, of course. For those of you in other Indivisible groups nationally, we encourage you to host other social gatherings, and Indivisible will reimburse you for most of the expenses. You'll need to fill out this form in the chat. Be sure to read the event ideas and guidance resource before holding your event to see what's covered. If you have questions tonight, please wait until the speaker asks for questions and then raise your hand. The last thing before we get started is to please sign the petition in the chat to free Jeanette Vizquierra. ICE appears to be readying to possibly deport her, despite not possessing a valid deportation order. Her attorneys have raised concerns about serious legal errors and potential violations of due process. Ms. Vizquierra has led the fight against her own deportation since 2009. ICE detained the community leader, mother, and grandmother without warning on March 17th. The local community has come together and already raised $35,000 above the GoFundMe goal set by the family, but you are still invited to donate here if you'd like. Excuse me, 1 second. On Saturday, April 5th, both Indivisible and 5051 are organizing a huge protest in DC and encouraging people to attend or host their own local events if there isn't one nearby. You can find events near you or get the host toolkit using the link that I'll put in the chat. Solidarity Warriors has joined with 5051, Indivisible Colorado, and Indivisible National to organize a mass protest and rally and march on the west steps of the Capitol building in Denver from noon to 4 p.m. on April 5th. Day by day, the energy has been growing. People are waking up to the threat that Trump, Musk, and MAGA Republicans pose to our rights, our livelihoods, and our democracy. Dozens are showing up at Tesla dealerships weekend after weekend. Hundreds are turning out for town hall meetings with their members of Congress. Thousands are coming together for protests at state capitals. Now the time has come for a massive, coordinated show of defiance all across the country. Every protest planned between now and then is an opportunity for recruitment. Every town hall event during the congressional recess provides a chance to bring ticked off constituents into our mass mobilization. You can find events planned near you this week with the link in the chat. Trump and Musk think they can rule like kings while the people they're stealing from sit back and let them get away with it. On April 5th, we'll show them how very wrong they are. A core principle behind the April 5th hands-off mass mobilization is a commitment to nonviolent action. We expect all participants to seek to de-escalate any potential confrontations with those who disagree with our values. The message of hands-off is that Americans are fed up with the Musk-Trump power grab and want an end to the lawless raiding of our government. Hands off is a simple rallying cry against an administration that's dangerously overreaching and throwing our democracy, our economy, and for many, our private lives into chaos. This means hands off our Medicaid, our Social Security, our public lands, our jobs, public education, veterans benefits, our undocumented neighbors, our trans siblings, Ukraine aid, diversity programs, Canada, our reproductive rights, and hands off our democracy. You can already register to attend protests in cities across the country. And that's just the start. Indivisible leaders and partners are working to confirm protests in every major metro area in the country. And we anticipate hundreds of demonstrators in towns and smaller cities nationwide. Where should you go? If you can make it to DC, we want you there. If you can get to an event in the closest metro area, that's the next best thing. And if you want to host a smaller demonstration in your town, Indivisible has a toolkit to help you do that too. They're holding an informational meeting for hosts on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. The important thing is to show up on April 5th where you can so that we can make our collective power felt. Now, I want to talk about what happened with the vote on the continuing resolution to fund the government. First, let's talk about why letting the government shut down could have been the Democrats' strongest way to stand up to Trump and Musk. The bill cuts funding for non-defense programs and services by $13 billion while increasing defense spending by $6 billion. The only way to accomplish this is to cut things like Medicaid, SNAP, and Social Security. The CR was Democrats' first high-profile chance at a standoff with Republicans in Donald Trump's second term. Their chance to try to negotiate for some oversight and accountability over the White House, Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, and their cuts across the government. The bill took away Congress's ability to stop the economic spiral we're in due to Trump's tariffs. GOP leadership slipped language into a House rule in the CR that prevents any member of Congress from bringing up a resolution terminating Trump's declaration of a national emergency over fentanyl and undocumented immigrants entering the U.S. Sorry about that. The president has used that emergency declaration to justify his tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. Some Democratic legislators point out that Trump is already effectively shutting down parts of the government through DOJ's major cuts to federal agencies. This bill is a power grab that further entrenches the work of the executive branch to eliminate Congress's power. Storing up Democratic support, unifying the party, and beating back the do-nothing Democratic brand that has taken root were all clear political benefits of voting no on the CR. Democrats wanted a 30-day stopgap spending bill to give them more time to negotiate a CR that included safeguards for how government funding would be spent and administered. Namely, they wanted guarantees that the White House would spend the money Congress had appropriated, protecting the legislative branch's constitutionally mandated power of the purse. Those concerns grew after a report from the news outlet noticed that Vice President J.D. Vance told House members to vote for the bill and suggested that Trump would refuse to spend allocations that the White House thought were harmful. Safeguards against such spending blocks are not included in the House bill, nor are more oversight of limits on DOJ and Elon Musk another Democratic priority. So the case for allowing a shutdown is also that Democrats would be taking a stand against a presidency that has already challenged legal and constitutional norms, dismantled parts of the federal government and its workforce, and poses a threat to democracy. The additional powers granted to the president during a shutdown would largely not have come until after the government had been shut down for 30 days or more. The courts would have continued to operate. They have reserve funds in place for just such a situation as this. While some cases might have been delayed, the courts have the right to prioritize cases as they see fit while using their limited funds during a shutdown. That's the case the anti-CR Democrats like House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries made. He said the bill that was strongly opposed by House Democrats is a power grab that further unleashes and entrenches Elon Musk's efforts. He and other House Democratic leaders urged Senate Democrats to stand with them and oppose the CR. Democratic lawmakers and officials say the Democratic Party is facing its own Tea Party movement. Voters want more fight, more action. During Obama's first year, the Democrats had a thin majority in both chambers of commerce, and the Republicans were instantly angry. They were angry at Obama's agenda and how much he was enacting, and how much Republicans were failing to stop it. To many Republicans, their leadership in Congress was not feeling up to the task of opposing this powerful president from the opposing party. You started to see this anger at public forums, Republicans shouting down Democratic lawmakers about the agenda, and real activism. And you see this anger and activism expressed in primaries across the country. Outsider, younger, and angrier candidates were winning and beating the old guard of the Republican Party. One of those lawmakers was Senator Ted Cruz, and in 2013, he pushed his Republican colleagues to shut down the government as a last-ditch effort to stop Obamacare. It was clear that Ted Cruz did not have a path to victory, but the point was to say, I am out here with you. I'm willing to have this fight, even if we can't win. Suddenly, you see Democrats in the same exact place. Last week, they were talking about using the same tool, shutting down the federal government. They thought the fight was worth having because if you didn't actually have the fight, you weren't speaking to where Democratic voters actually are. I know there are those of you who believe voting for the bill to avoid a shutdown was the lesser of two evils. So we're going to have an honest discussion on that in just a few minutes. First, I want to talk about Schumer's decision to go back on his word and capitulate to Trump by voting for the CR and convincing 9 other Democrats to vote with him. This weekend, I listened to the New York Times interview with Chuck Schumer. You can listen to it for free on their podcast called The Daily. He sounded very out of touch with voters. He said Democrats have always been the party of working people. When the interviewer, Lulu Garcia Navarro, pointed out that's not how the American people view the Democratic Party right now, Schumer said, that's right. That's where we're moving. That's where we have to move. This was right after he said, we are the party of working people. That's who we have always been. The vote on the CR to fund the government and avoid a shutdown happened after the interview. Lulu and Schumer's colleague, Lulu said Schumer's colleagues say he lacked leadership, leading up to his decision to vote with the Republicans. He wasn't in communication with Hakeem Jeffries. It took many in the caucus by surprise. There didn't seem to be a plan. Hakeem Jeffries was asked if Schumer should be replaced or if he still had faith in him. And Jeffries pointedly refused to answer that question 3 times. It's time for Schumer to step down. Schumer's main argument was that a shutdown would have been terrible. It's what Trump and Musk wanted, so they would be in control of what to keep open as essential. Well, they're already deciding which government agencies to keep open and which ones to shutter. On Wednesday last week, Schumer said the Democrats were united in rejecting the CR. 2 days later, Schumer announced that he would vote for cloture to let the bill pass. The Republicans needed 60 votes for cloture to bring the bill up to a vote where it could pass by just 51 votes. Republicans hold 53 seats in the Senate. Schumer convinced 9 other Democrats to vote for cloture with him. They are Senators Fetterman, Cortez, Mastro, Durbin, King, Shaheen, Gillibrand, Schatz, Hassan, and Peters. If you live in one of their states, I strongly urge you to attend their town hall this week or during the next Senate recess from April 12th to the 27th. And if they're not having a live town hall, host an empty town hall chair for them. Use the link in the chat for more info. I also want to read an email that Indivisible sent out on Sunday. When Republicans first introduced their partisan funding bill to keep the government open, full of extreme cuts, attacks on basic rights, and provisions to give even more authority to Trump and Musk to continue dismantling the federal government, it was clear that the fight to stop it would require Democrats to operate with real unity. Federal employee unions, litigators fighting Trump in court, outside advocates, House Democrats, many Democratic Party insiders, and Indivisible were all in lockstep that passing this bill would be worse than a government shutdown. The GOP funding bill would give Trump and Musk carte blanche to continue their administrative coup, and Democrats voting for it would be complicit in all the actions to follow. But Senate Democrats had the leverage to stop it. Advancing this bill required clearing a 60-vote threshold for cloture, meaning Republicans would need 7 or 8 Democrats to vote to allow their coup-enabling bill to advance. And after House Democrats showed their power with an almost unanimous vote against the bill on Tuesday, we had momentum as the vote moved into the Senate. However, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer decided to cave. Instead of using a rare point of actual leverage, he announced his decision to surrender without a fight, voting for cloture and providing a pass for other Senate Democrats to fold. By the time of the vote on Friday afternoon, 10 Senate Democrats voted with Republicans to invoke cloture and allow the bill to sail through to final passage and Trump's desk. This was a massive betrayal of the Democratic Party, of indivisibles and activists organizing against the bill, and of our democracy. Because of Schumer's failure, the bill included 0 safeguards against Musk's illegal and unconstitutional behavior. By refusing to hold the line, Senator Schumer went against the vast majority of his party to fully capitulate to Trump. Indivisibles drove calls and organized events for weeks to try and stop this bill, and the outrage from our network on Schumer's surrender was immediate. Earlier this week, Indivisible organized emergency calls with the Indivisible group leaders across the country to decide how we should respond. After intense discussion, we took a vote on how to proceed, and the results were overwhelming. 82% of New York Indivisible group leaders voted to demand that Schumer resign as minority leader. 91% of Indivisible group leaders nationwide agreed. The message was clear. If Chuck Schumer is unwilling to lead the opposition, he must make way for someone who will. Accordingly, Indivisible National issued an official statement calling for his resignation. This is not a decision we take lightly. For years, we fought alongside Senator Schumer to push for progressive policies and hold the line against Republican extremism. But his capitulation on the Republican funding bill was not just a failure of strategy, it was a failure of leadership. And if he will not fight in this defining moment, then we must demand someone who will. Indivisibles deserve a Democratic Party and leadership of that party who is committed to fighting as hard as we are. A minority leader who is unwilling to fight back against fascism is a weakness our democracy cannot afford. We need to pressure every single Democratic senator to speak out and join us in calling for new leadership that is prepared to lead a unified opposition to Trump and Musk. For folks with Democratic senators, here are 2 actions you can take right away. Before Senate offices open tomorrow, use the Indivisible form to send an email to your Democratic senator and ask them to call on Senator Schumer to step down as minority leader. Then tomorrow morning, use our click to call page to call your Democratic senators and urge them to call on Senator Schumer to step aside. I'll put those links in the chat. Whether you have a Republican or Democratic senator, you have the opportunity to hold them accountable right now while they're home for recess. Most Democrats voted the right way and opposed the GOP funding bill, and we should have their backs while pushing them to keep up the fight. You can find an upcoming recess near you, or use the toolkit I put in the chat and demand that your senator must stand with working families instead of bowing to billionaires like Musk. From planning town halls to protesting at Tesla dealerships to showing up to congressional offices, our movement is willing to put in the work to defend our democracy. We have no intention of surrendering to Trump, Musk, or congressional Republicans, and we will not back down until we secure leadership that is equally dedicated to this fight. Now I'd like to open up the discussion. Tell us, what are you planning to do on April 5th? How about this recess that ends on Friday, or the next one starting on April 12th? Regardless of whether Schumer did the right thing in this instance, do you think it's time for new leadership in the Senate? Any other comments or questions are welcome, but please keep them to less than 3 minutes and be respectful of your fellow activists. Please raise your hand when you're ready. Sally?
Okay, I am going to call and ask for Schumer's for a change in leadership. And just a couple of additional reasons. There was an interview that he had with Chris Hayes on Tuesday. And maybe it was Monday. Anyway, he does not believe that we are in a constitutional crisis yet. And that kind of explains, I guess, where he was when he made that decision. But I believe that we are, and that we need new leadership simply because of that. Also, just a point to bring up that he did ask Biden to step down when he thought it was better for the Democratic Party. And so that is something that I'm bringing up on my phone calls, is to ask him to step up and do the same thing that he was asking Biden to do. Another question that I have is, does Indivisible have a senator or senators perhaps to suggest to stand up? It might be like better or whatever.
You mean as the minority leader in the Senate?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do.
No, Indivisible hasn't come out in support of anyone in particular yet.
I know Indivisible hasn't come out with anything formally. Personally, I'd go with Bernie. I mean, that would be my first choice, especially given where we are now and given the popularity of what he's got. I think he would be a good person to lead the fight, because he has shown that he is willing to fight over and over and over again, and not for personal gain.
Okay.
That's just my opinion, and that would just be my choice.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Sally. Kathy?
I think it is definitely time for new leadership. I'm in Illinois and am very upset with Durbin because, but he is old school, and I think, obviously a similar mindset to Schumer. So yes, I think we need new leadership, that we really are in a constitutional crisis. So.
Thank you, Kathy. Mary?
Yes, I am totally in agreement with Sally and Kathy on the constitutional crisis. There was an excellent CPR podcast today at 4 o'clock, Colorado Public Radio, that really talked about this point in terms of the latest deportation crisis and Trump basically coming out and asking for the impeachment of the Texas, sorry, judge. But the other thing to answer the question is, in my recess and tomorrow, or in the recess, but then tomorrow, 2 Colorado governors did vote the right way, and I'm really going to make a point on the CR bill to thank them for that and that unity with the party, and express how important it is to keep the unity together, but that it really is time to find someone who's willing to fight, just as everybody said. Thanks.
I agree. I'm so proud that Hickenlooper and Bennett in Colorado, voted against the CR. Cameron?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with things that are being said. It's so good that I'm attending this meeting because I have felt alone in my anger and just been stewing about it, listening every day to more things that Trump has done. I think the most egregious thing he has done is arresting people without due process and deporting them from the United States. I mean, I almost, I've been going crazy, be thinking, who's going to be next? What group is he going to start rounding up and deporting somewhere or imprisoning, put them somewhere? So I'm all for April the 5th. I will attend the rally or demonstration or whatever it's going to be, a march in Denver, Colorado, on the west steps of the Capitol. And Bennett and Hickenlooper, of course, are my senators, and they did vote against the CR. I do not know where they stand on asking Schumer to step down, but I will ask them to please demand that he step down. And this is not the first time that something like this in Congress has happened. And Schumer missed the boat all the way around. This was an opportunity. It was an opportunity for him to be a leader and to stand up against Trump. And we would just suffer the consequences of what the shutdown was. But the Republicans were so good at scaring Democrats and saying, oh, if we have a shutdown, it'll be worse. And I have friends who believe as strongly and passionately as I do. And they said, oh, we shouldn't have a shutdown. It will be awful on all of us. Well, I don't agree, and I didn't agree then, and I still don't agree. So I'm going to ask for Schumer to step down. Yes.
Thank you, Cameron. Carol?
Hi. Let's see. I call my senators and congressperson. I live in northern New Mexico. So, but I call them at least 4 times a week. And I will talk to them about, I'll leave messages or talk to them about getting rid of Schumer. I post on Schumer's Blue Sky. I'm not on any other social media. And, a lot of times I'll be listening and to somebody speaking, and I'll just go to his and kind of repeat what they say. And I keep asking him to resign. And I'm going to be up in Denver for Bernie on Friday because he'll be there. And then this April 5th, I don't see where, because I travel like to Oregon, to New Mexico, to Denver. I kind of travel around a little bit. But I don't see anywhere where these protests are going to happen. I mean, I see one on the 5051 website in DC, and it says if you can't go to DC, click here. And then it just kind of takes you right back around. And I know you're not 5051, but is there any way we can get, I think we need to start having did you see the protest in Belarus? on the web and other places like that where they're just having these mass protests. And I think it's time that we just get out there. And I know not everybody can protest, but as many people as we can get, I just think it's time for us to get out there as much as possible. And how can we know where the protests are in every
One-
state? So that's all. I have to say.
Sure. One way to find those is on Mobilize. Have you been on that website?
No.
Yeah, Google Mobilize, and you can go on there and look up Indivisible. I'm not sure that 5051 lists their events on there. I have contacts with them in Colorado. I don't have like a national contact, but I'll let them know about the website. I had a similar issue looking at like scheduling a 5051 event. But we are partnering with Indivisible Colorado, 5051, and Indivisible National for a mass protest at the Denver Capitol on the West Steps on April 5th. So that is definitely the place to be if you can't get to DC on that date. That is the mass mobilization that we are all pushing for, is going to be Saturday, April 5th.
Okay. Yeah. And I did write to 5051. I emailed them and told them about the issue with the website. So
Okay.
anyways, thank you. Thank you for all you
You're
do.
welcome.
Just
Thank you.
to follow up on the topic, we are talking to 5051 about the April 5th events along with several other groups. So you want to go?
Kenneth?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I'm a member of Forever Indivisible in Boulder. But several of us are working strategically with other Indivisible members and several other groups, Progress Now, to have an empty chair town hall for the absent gutless Gabe Evans in CD8, who won't have. So we're going to have an empty chair town hall on Saturday for him, and excited about that. I like Bernie as minority leader. I kind of don't think that they would pick him. And I'd like to suggest Chris Murphy. He has been extremely active. If you're, watching on all the various media, he's getting on everything. And he just seems like another possibility. For those of you who need more information about who to call, there's a great app that's called 5 Calls. 5 Calls, and they give you all these suggestions and links on people to call. I called Hickenlooper and Bennett the other day and thanked them for their votes on the CR, and asked them to consider replacing Chuck Schumer as the minority leader. We'll see. I don't have a lot of faith they will. And I have a question to wrap up. How can ongoing active indivisible groups around the state get in good contact, direct contact with Solidarity Warriors? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, so we use the Activism Alliance Slack. And what that is, have you used Slack before?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, I'll put that link in the chat right now. I think you emailed me the other day, right? About
Yes.
coordinating safety marshals. Yeah.
Yes.
I emailed you back with that link, but I'll put it in the chat right now. I'm not sure if you got my email reply.
I did see that.
Okay. Yeah, that's how we're staying in touch. There's a bunch of indivisible groups on there. We've also got leadership from 5051 and Indivisible Colorado on there now, working together to help us plan this event.
I have a question. Sorry, I can't find my chat on, I guess I can find the chat on the bottom of the screen, but I can't find the hand up, you know? So
Okay.
I would have done that.
Um, okay, go ahead.
Anyway, I'm just wondering if anybody knows if the Minnesota senators voted for or against the CR bill.
Let me go over the list again real quick.
Klobuchar and Smith, that's the senators.
I think they voted against it, but let me find that
Okay.
list.
I just wanted to double check. so I
I'm
can
working on it,
thank
Tiffany.
them for that.
Okay. Are you able to see the chat?
Yes, I can see the chat.
Okay. I'm gonna put the list in the chat. Again, this is the list of people who voted for the CR
Oh, wow.
with the
okay.
Republicans.
Klobuchar and Smith voted no.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hello, my name is Demetrius up here.
Hi,
Uh,
Demetrius. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm at a different point right now. I'm kind of like at the point where Schumer, even though I disagree with him, I do not want to get rid of him because I don't know who's going to take place. Plus, the numbers are not good for the Democrats. Like they don't overpower the Senate, and there's still this um pressure with Trump. He's still going to do whatever he wants. So I would just let Schumer like have his own game plan and discuss it with Democrats to figure out what to do. Because if it's shut down, there'd be nothing. I won't be able to see him on television, or he'll just not do any more speeches. He'll do everything privately. I don't think that's good. Not with all the cuts that he's doing. That's just where I stand. So I'll protect Schumer right now until the Democrats have more power to take over Trump. I mean, that's
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
mean to be rude, but I need to speak. I mean, I can't get this off. I've got to get it off my chest. I'm listed as owner. I don't know. I've never been to an online chat before, but what I can, am I getting out? Is this on?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
We
great.
can hear
All
you.
right. Now, as for Schumer, yes, you know what? I'm in the minority right now. I can see, but I think Chuck Schumer knows what he's doing. I don't believe there's anything to have been gained by shutting down the government. I think that would play right into Musk and Trump's hands. I believe that the whole game plan, end game, demoralize the citizenry and erode the democracy system that we have in order to put Trump in the driver's seat. I think we need to keep our eyes on the prize, the Constitution. He needs to keep his hands off our judges. But all these little things that are going on, I think they're there to distract us. I think the real point is, what is he doing to our Constitution? And let's not let him mess with our judges.
So I understand your point, and I want to make it clear we are here and open to different points of view. The whole point of this is to have a discussion so that we can all work together for the same goals. If you support Schumer, that's fine. If you want Schumer gone, that's fine. We need to focus on protecting the Constitution and fighting Donald Trump. And that's why we're all here. So we are opening it for all of these opinions, and I want to make it clear, I want to encourage people to accept these, listen, make their own decisions, and come up with their own ideas, but point out that we can have differences of opinion and all be on the same team. And that's what we're trying to do here. And, there are people who are going to support Schumer. There are people who are going to be against him. And yes, most certainly the goal is to stop the worst of what's coming down. But the reality is, facing the CR, there were no good options. And both options empower Donald Trump. And that's what he wanted. That's why they set it up this way. That's why the Republicans left Wednesday in the House after they voted, so that if the Democrats made changes to get it through the Senate, there would be no possibility to change it. So, just keep in mind that we're all working together and we can all have these opinions and we want them all to be heard.
Okay,
So,
yes, I agree. The thing is, though, okay, yeah, there were both bad options, but shutting down the government, I'm pretty sure, is going to give Trump more ability to keep wrecking our country, our democracy, and our Constitution.
so does passing the CR. It gives him more money and more power to keep wrecking our Constitution also. And that's the whole point, that there is no way to do it through this. And I'm not even going to get into my opinions about it. But I just wanted to say that I think you've got a valid opinion, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from people about it.
I have a question.
Thank you. Hold on, Patricia,
I think
there's a lot of people with their hands raised, so I'm gonna get to them first. Karen? Karen, you're muted. There
Okay,
you go.
yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. I just want to know about the April 5th one. I started a group in my county a couple weeks ago, and we're having our second meeting Sunday, and we're going to talk about it. So my question, we were going to have one, we live rural, and we were going to have it in one part of our county, the April 5th. But I'm wondering, is it more important to go to, say, Sacramento, which is, about an hour from us, and be part of that bigger thing? Or should we do it and we live in a red county, by the way. So, or is it, which is more impactful, which is suggested, recommended?
Indivisible is asking everyone to get to the nearest major city to you if you can.
Okay.
And if you're not able to, then I'll post a link with information on how to plan your own event.
And so, even if we're a rural red county where we could have, because I guess the question is, couldn't we have some impact locally? But that could be other demonstrations. So the April 5th one is more important to be in a metro area. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't think there's a wrong
Thank you.
answer. They are trying to get people consolidated to get bigger numbers.
Right.
But if you can't make it and you do something in your red county, we've talked a lot about the impact that you can have in red counties, almost disproportionate to somebody in a blue county, because there are so many hearts and minds to change.
Thank you.
Tim?
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm having a rough day. Kind of ill. I'm a little, I don't even know what to think. I was very angry when the vote came out because Schumer and then Catherine Cortez Masto voted yes. And now I've heard other things why they voted again. And it's just it's all tangled up in my head. And of course, I'm also trying to deal with what's going on locally because we are the only district in Nevada that has a Republican, and he's a chicken. Absolutely refuses to answer us, meet with us, and I guess I'm planning to go to April 5th. It's down in Carson City. It's only about 30 miles down the road from me. But there's just so much going on in my head today that I've kind of backed away a little from the news because I guess I got a little overwhelmed. I'm really hoping that the judiciary steps up and puts more pressure on Trump. I got a little bit of hope yesterday when they're calling it a rebuke. I don't know if I go that far. What's his name? John Roberts, the chief of the Supreme Court, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, uh, basically said, with the impeachment of the judges that are going against Trump. that was a little helpful. But dealing with, hearing about the deportations, and there's like four friends from Venezuela who came in. I don't know whether they're here illegally or not, but I think they were. And they thought they were going to get sent back to Venezuela. Non-criminals, nothing. They've been working. Turns out they got put on a plane to El Salvador. And it's just all this stuff is just starting to get in my head, and it's stressful. And I'm trying to sort out where I stand on things, but I'm hearing so many different things. It's like I have to back away and for a day or two and think about it. And I've still got this whole thing in my head about whether or not I want to run for Congress against our Republican chicken next year. So,
So, so I want to point out that these things are coming fast and furious. And a lot of times there's no answer, there's no right, and there's no wrong. And it's a matter of resisting as much as you can in as many ways as you can. But at the same time, some of these things are going to go through regardless of how much we fight. And we need to keep out of getting dragged down into the weeds on certain individual particular topics. Inform yourself, know what's going on. We are here to support each other. And when you're down, understand that we're all behind you and that we are all working together. And that's why we have these meetings, so that we can have a coordinated resistance that even without political power in the formal establishment, we can band together and still make something happen. And, they're going to be, I've been talking about this since the election. These things are going to happen. Bad things are going to happen. People are going to get hurt. They are going to die. They are going to suffer. These are the innocent people that, the Republicans claim they're defending by being pro-life. And they're sending innocent people to Guantanamo. And they're sending innocent people to prisons in El Salvador. And that's why we fight what we fight.
Thank you, Morgan. 1 second, Patricia. Tim, I wanted to say that it's okay to take time and back away from the news. We're like a choir. When one of us needs to take a break, the rest of us will continue singing. Patricia, go ahead.
I just wondered if anybody thought that it might be really hard for the Democrats to say no to the CR to shut down the government, because then they'd be blamed for that.
That is something that was an issue in this fight.
What was that?
Edward?
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to second some of those things and say thanks for everybody in this group. I'm glad to see everybody here and showing up. But to Tim, I feel you, man. There's days when it's just soul crushing, but like everybody was saying, people smarter than me, that like take your rest, come back Monday ready to fight. So I just wanted to mention, regardless of what happens with Schumer, I have my own opinions on that. I don't want to stir the pot too much, but I think everybody here, whether you're in the Democratic Party or not, on the left, that we can find community. I think it's important when I go to Indivisible things. I try to reach out to younger people who are there. It's a lot of us are a little older, and that's fine. I'm glad we're all here, but trying to reach out to them and say, I see your problems, and like try to give a progressive vision for the country, dealing with affordability, medical and student debt, to try and tell them like, we're listening. It's better off over here. Don't sit this out, because I think that's important. And I just wanted to kind of bring that up and put it in everybody's mind that, we're here, but maybe younger people aren't, and we got to make a case to them and just reach out to them and tell them, I know what's going on. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Edward. Sarah? Sarah, you're muted.
Me? Or another?
Someone, oh no, another Sarah had her hand up. All right. Debbie?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things that I'm frustrated about is we keep hearing our congressmen and senators telling people that they need to get active and they need to do something, which I couldn't agree with more. But I also feel the frustration of what are they doing? What are the congressmen doing? What are the senators doing? And I know there's a lot of fundraising and we're all burnt out because we donated, at least I did, to Harris campaign and down ballot folks. But one thing I'd like to see, and I don't know if Indivisible is encouraging this of the congressmen and senators, is that every time they have an opportunity to speak publicly, take some time to call out the hypocrisy of one of their fellow congressmen or senators. Rubio, who backed, now he's of course Secretary of State, but Rubio, who backed Ukraine and, is turning on them. And talk about, how that person used to feel and the cowardice of them, caving to Trump because they're afraid they'll be primaried or whatever it is they're afraid of, and use that opportunity every time they have a microphone in front of them. Even during the hearings, when they were questioning candidates for cabinet positions, it seemed to me useless to ask these people questions because they were going to lie and do whatever they wanted anyway. But they could have used their 5 minutes to say, let me talk about so-and-so across the aisle who is caving to Donald Trump and not standing for what he's always voted for in the past, and discuss that over and over and over again and get some media attention to the fact that our congressmen and our senators are calling out the other side so that we at least see that they're doing something and getting some media attention, because we all know that Trump hogs the media attention and we need to shift that. That's my comment.
Thank you. Pat?
I'm just wondering if anybody knows if the Democrats would have been in a worse situation had they said no and gone into a shutdown, because I was thinking that maybe they would be blamed for the shutdown.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that. I think we want to kind of move on from that part of the discussion. I don't want this to turn into a debate about whether the shutdown was good or not, or would have been good or not. But I definitely want to talk more about what people are planning to do, or if there are any questions about upcoming events. Other Pat.
Is that me?
Yep, that's you.
Okay. All right, thanks. Well, Miriam keeps bringing up, is this a Democratic meeting? Because I'm against the Democratic Party. I wish somebody could explain to him what this is. Yes, it's a Democratic discussion, but we're not, maybe not everybody's Democratic parties. I tried to explain it, but so that's one thing. But the one thing or a few things that have bothered me is, I really feel that the United States of America doesn't really exist anymore. I feel we are now the Confederate Nazi states of Trump Incorporated. And with that, everything's been just smoke and mirrors with them. They, for instance, releasing the JFK files, they're just doing it as a diversion, as they just keep stealing away our country away from us monetarily. This is a civil war that they're attacking us monetarily mostly, but they're also doing it with taking away the trans from the all the military, for example, and all these little changes that they're shoving down our throats. And I feel that we need to be pushing, and I've been seeing a little bit of it online, but I'm thinking like big strong TV ads or something. This is what Trump said, and this is what is really meant. Oh, this is what's really happening with him, of how deceitful and deceptive he is, and how he's doing it as a Nazi dictator. And I just think that we need to come out full force that way and show that we know what you're doing, and we know you're insulting our intelligence by trying to pull the wool over our eyes. So take that from there. See what happens. I'm sick.
Let me respond by first saying we are independent of the Democratic Party. We are an indivisible chapter. And so if there is any question to that, that is where we are. Many of us are or are not aligned with the Democratic Party, and that is mostly not relevant to what we're talking about. You can be on either side, like I said, but to your other point, I feel is far more important, and I have been saying this wherever I can. Donald Trump has broken our system deliberately and by design. Even with just the harm that Doge has done already, our government will never be the same. And the question is, what happens now? And that's what we're working to change and have an effect on. That may be through ballot box, that may be through activism. But right now, the people need to decide what change they want and where they want it to land, or we are going to wind up finding ourselves in a very bad place. So, that's where we are. This is the state of things around us. So I understand where you're coming from.
And I think, as far as I'm concerned, he's guilty of treason on multiple counts, even back to his first presidency. And nobody brings that up. Nobody wants to bring up the word treason. Some people have, but that's another problem, I think, too. And we know what the Constitution says about treason.
Let me be clear about my position. I think everybody who's been involved in breaking the government has committed treason, and supporting Donald Trump is treasonous because he is unfit and has committed crimes against the country and violated his oath. I think they all should be charged with treason, but I'm realistic enough to realize the Republicans aren't going to impeach him. And, again, we have to face the reality that is around us. But I think there is a very good case for treason, especially against Donald Trump, for years.
Yep.
All right, before I get myself into more trouble, Elsie, go ahead.
Yes, so I had a few things that I wanted to bring up. So the first was when we're talking about Schumer stepping down, something that I've heard from, I don't know, like, I can't remember where I heard it. Source, dude, trust me. But some people were talking about potentially that AOC was maybe going to primary Schumer, and I was wondering what Indivisible's stance on that is, and kind of if they're planning to do any sort of activism or laying the groundwork for somebody, AOC or somebody else, to primary Schumer. So I guess that was one of my questions. And then the other question is, I speak to a lot of representatives when I can, like in their offices, especially like state representatives, like for the Colorado legislature. And something that comes up a lot that I've heard is, I think that a lot of Democrats kind of have a learned helplessness, an attitude of like, oh, well, our hands are tied. And I'm wondering if Indivisible is planning any actions or has strategies for kind of re-empowering those Democrats that maybe would be on our side, but have just kind of thrown their hands up with the whole thing and have decided that, whatever, this is inevitable and I can't do anything. Because I do think that that is a very real attitude that exists among some of them.
Thank you. That's really good information to have. So that's great that you are visiting with them, especially on the state level. I think that a lot of important work happens at the state level. So I haven't heard any particular plans along those lines, but I will definitely run it up the chain. I am hopeful that, you know, when they do the right thing and we tell them, you know, we've got your back, you know, if you're going to stand up and fight this, we are here for you. That's a good message that we can send them. And hopefully the April 5th protests will show them that there are a lot of people, you know, that really want change. As far as AOC primarying Schumer, personally, I am all for it. Indivisible hasn't taken a stance on that yet. I think they'll probably wait to see, you know, what materializes, and that's pretty far down the line as well. But I would guess from their, you know, philosophy that AOC is someone that they would support.
Yeah, I can't speak for Indivisible, but I did hear the rumor about her potentially primarying him, which, you know, I don't feel very strongly about. But Carol Ann has been waiting very patiently, so I think we should give her a chance to speak.
Thank you. This is my first experience with Indivisible in an interactive way. So forgive me if I'm not like catching on to the wave. I really appreciate everything that everybody's saying. It's very exciting that there are all these ideas. What I wonder, especially in talking to my children who are in their 30s to 40s, basically what they want is a game plan. They want to know what it is that people are capable of doing now, including getting behind candidates for the midterms. And they want to know what the issues are and how we can move forward in those issues. I understand what's happening. I understand that the power is in the Republicans' hands. However, are there ACLU lawyers? Are there, or other lawyers, are there other resources that the public, the voters, can maybe talk to and deal with? Are there people that are trying to figure out strategy to prevent some of the initiatives that are happening? And more importantly, to offer something, especially to younger people who have a lot more future, a lot more road than somebody like I do. So to talk about specific things like housing, benefits, work with dignity, all of those things, as opposed to, I appreciate the complaining. It's horrifying what's happening. And if we don't get it out and say, oh my God, this is happening, it gets all bottled up inside. I get that. I guess as a scientist, what I want to know is, what are the problems? What is it we need to do? How do we solve them? I love that comment that the Democrats seem to be disempowered. And maybe some empowerment comes from research and finding out exactly what they can do. What can you bring? What kind of lawsuits can you bring to a court? What does an individual senator, what kind of power do they have to filibuster or prevent something to happen or bring something to the floor? I want to know practical things, and that's what my children are just keep talking about. And in order to get younger people involved, they have to feel like they have a stake in it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think getting involved with a local Indivisible group is a great way to gather that information as far as lawyers that are filing suits to stop a lot of these things. Yes, the ACLU has filed quite a few, and then Public Citizen is a group that has been filing some amazing lawsuits and having some really great success. There are some great podcasts that I would start with the Rachel Maddow show. You can either watch it on TV or listen to her podcast. But there are that's a good source of information for me. But yeah, I would get involved with the local Indivisible group. They are welcome to join us here on Wednesdays. We're here every Wednesday. Bring them out to the April 5th protest. You know, that's a great way to get energized and, you know, make a difference.
Pod Save America is another great
Yeah,
resource.
it's a good one.
Carol Ann, I have a science background too, and I also have kids a little younger than yours, but not much. I am glad you're here because the reason I got into this and the reason I connected with Tiffany is I got tired of going to meetings where there were a lot of people talking and saying make phone calls. And we operate differently than most other indivisible groups because we're not strictly local to any one particular place. We connect with people across the country, and we focus on doing things and teaching people to do things and using our collective experience so that you can go out and do. So we are participating in planning the protest in Denver on April 6th or April 5th. But we're going to have a cookie contest social. We have done some protesting. We've made stickers that were designed by people in our group. And we are focusing on giving people something to do. And it doesn't matter whether you're in a blue state or a red state, come here and we will give you instructions and help you do the things that will make a difference in light of the fact that the Democrats are where they are. That's kind of what we focus on doing, and that's our niche.
That was the last thing I want to say is that that was another idea of mine. If let's just pick something out of the blue, let's say egg prices, if that's the thing, everybody wants them down. There could be an initiative, I think, to pull people in from different parties. Why stick with the Democratic Party?
And that's why we operate independently, because we want to pull those people in, because there are going to be a lot of people disaffected who voted in this election and regret it. And they need to have a place to come to resist what's going on that's hurting them as well. So yeah, we try and be open and have a place for people to make the change that they want.
Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan.
You're still.
I was gonna say we have limited time left, so I want to give people a chance to speak that haven't spoken yet. So your name says D Vigil or Vigil. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm coming out of Salt Lake City, Utah, totally a red state. I'm a mental health therapist, and I heard some people saying how anxious they are, and it is something that definitely I'm seeing with my clients. And it's trying to take a step back and pick one thing that you're super focused on, whether it's a Department of Education, whatnot, immigration. I have been a doom scroller myself, and I am trying to not do that and trying to pick one thing. But I know for me, being active in things like this, I'm going out to DC with my husband to go and protest. And that's something that is, I'm getting good feelings from it because I know I'm doing something as much as that I can. And that is helping my anxiety. I work with different people that work in government and, definitely socioeconomic stuff that is a hindrance. But I do have to say that with the government shutdown, I know that it was going to affect quite a few of my clients because they wouldn't be getting any money when they're already in a stressful situation of feeling like they're going to be fired or they just don't know. So I don't know, again, like which one was better for him to do. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Well, and I also think it's a lot of what if, this is done and I don't really see a lot to cry about. Just go on and keep fighting.
Yeah, and I feel like educating is really important. My son voted for Trump, which yes, I don't know why, but he tells me the reason why is because I have never pushed any kind of political agenda or religious agenda. And I think that definitely, like the other woman was saying, it's important for us to educate and educate our children, educate anybody and anybody that will listen. I know maybe sometimes it's beating a dead horse because that comes up between everywhere, but definitely something that's important to do. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I
Kathy
appreciate
Mosley?
everybody's patience.
Oh,
go ahead, Tiffany.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just gonna let the next person
Oh, okay.
go.
Thank you. That kind of leads into the question, now that the CR has been passed, and unfortunately cannot go to marches. I can't get vaccinated, so I'm pretty much stuck at home. Fortunately, I work from home, so that helps. What what type of actions besides, calling for Schumer to step down, or what should we focus on to keep the worst from happening now that the CR has been passed?
I think we're gonna have more information on that in the coming weeks. I always do get our follow-up emails that we send out after the meeting. Okay, great. So that's where we're gonna have most of the current actions. Anything urgent, I will send out separately from that. But as far as things you can do from home, it's gonna be making those phone calls, staying on top of them, keeping them accountable, praising them when they do the right thing, things like that.
I just want to thank Morgan for his recommendation of, I cannot pronounce the author's last name, but Blueprint to a Revolution. Fascinating reading. And just to pass along, there was a documentary made by PBS, which I just ordered. So
I haven't seen it yet, but the book was pretty good. I do appreciate everybody's patience. We are getting to everybody as fast as we can. We have 9 questions lined up, so if you can, try and be brief. Do you want to go ahead, owner? And what do you want me to change your name to?
Brent. And I wish I knew how to do that. I don't. But how can we help protect our Constitution?
I think that we can show strength in numbers with the April 5th protests. I think that's our best point of leverage right now, is getting a huge mass mobilization, getting media coverage. Trump hates, media coverage of things that make him look bad. I think we can talk to our neighbors and people in our community that maybe voted for Trump. And instead of just spitting facts at them, we can come at it from an emotional standpoint and say, how are you feeling about this? How is this affecting you? And have conversations that way, and bring people around to hopefully voting for another candidate.
This is where we disagree sometimes a little bit, and this is where I sometimes come out as the bearer of bad news. If you want my opinion, he's already torn the Constitution up. There's nothing to protect. He put people on planes to deport them in violation of court orders. He is not eligible to run based on fomenting an insurrection. He has 34 felonies, and his respect for the rule of law simply doesn't exist. And most of what he has been doing is trying to purge the government so that he can establish power for himself. What is there to protect? There may be scraps, there may be bits and pieces. As much as I would like to say this is what we can do, significant harm has already been done, and I don't know the best way to undo that short of, a constitutional convention.
I have to agree, but with all due respect, Morgan, all these other little things that people are so focused on are just those shiny objects. They're meant to distract us. Don't get distracted by them. Keep your eye on the prize.
Exactly what I'm saying. Yep, I agree.
Okay. All right,
I think you're right.
I was gonna say we've got 9 people with their hands up, including Carol. So we're gonna get to those people, and then I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we'll end the meeting after that. So Carol will be our last speaker, but it looks like the next person up. I clicked the wrong button. Morgan, who's next?
I see Cassandra is next.
sorry, anyway, so I've heard a lot of discussion in the comments section, or the chat about young people involvement. And I think that something that Republicans are very good at is actually reaching out to young people. And by that, I mean they have a lot of, specifically when it comes to, like, for instance, Moms for Liberty, I think their name is. They have support networks in their churches to support stay-at-home moms. So, like, I take care of your kid on this day, you take care of my kid on that day. You know, they have these built-in community dynamics that enables young people to have the time and the energy to participate politically. And that is something that I don't think the left really keeps in mind as much. I also think that there is definitely this sense of learned helplessness amongst young people, especially since we see Republicans kind of throwing out everything in order to achieve their goals, while Democrats are almost too adherent to the rules, to the point that they miss the overall moral agenda, if that makes any sense. Like, someone's life should be more important, like protecting, you know, people's rights should be more important than following the subtle nuances of, like, yeah, like, is this the traditional way to go about this procedure, that sort of thing.
I agree with you. One of the biggest differences I've had with the Democratic Party over the years is the fact that I feel we need to be movement building in exactly the way that you're talking about. I think we need mutual aid in helping people take care of their kids, get fed, and get everybody all on board together. And in my experience, the Democratic Party has been focused on winning elections instead. And that's where, you know, we wind up here. But what you're saying is very, very true. And I think that's where we should be looking and spending our energy to build that and bring people together. All right, I've got.
So are there any, this is a related question. So are there any plans to kind of arrange that have been formalized, or is it just still in the idea phase?
Well, so one of the most difficult, frustrating things about resisting what's going on is the fact that there was no organized movement. There were lots of little pieces all over the place, but there was not one unified thing. And right now, it all needs to be built all at once. So yes, there are people that are working on that side of things. And the way I prefer to do it is let the people who do that as their sole issue and know it far better than I do it and support them. So yeah, there are groups that are starting to do these sorts of things, but they are still very small and they are still very forming, just like all of the other groups. And most of what has been built very quickly, through a lot of hard work by a lot of different people. So yes, it's coming, but it's somewhere between idea and reality.
Okay, so one last thing. If there are these groups forming, do you know what they are? And if so, can you provide them in the comments? Because I think I could contribute to that.
How do I explain this? What I see forming is very similar to these indivisible groups that are doing different things in different places. So I'm connected with an indivisible group in Florida that is starting their own mutual aid society, in the idea that it's something that could be replicated across the country. But I generally tend to tell people, look for an agency that's local to where you are. A food pantry, organization, even a sympathetic religious organization that are doing these sorts of things near you that can be built up and connect with nationwide groups that are building it all together. So I don't have a specific resource on that topic for you, but that's how I would approach finding it.
On a similar topic, we're going to talk about coalition building in our next meeting. The link I just put in the chat for the Activism Alliance Slack is where we are starting to do that. So that's where we're starting to bring a lot of these smaller movements together. Kara?
I know I missed a lot. I've spent 2 weeks in the hospital, but I'm wondering, Musk and Trump are a deadly combination. They really are. Musk is shutting down all these agencies, and Trump is going, go, 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 And that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Kara.
I'm glad you're
Michelle?
out of the hospital. I hope you're feeling well, but Donald Trump is going to continue doing it until somebody stops him.
Michelle, go ahead.
Hi there. I would love to see can you hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I would love to see a mammoth show of support, show of force by the American people. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, everyone who's been affected by this delusional stooge and his accomplice. I wanted to know, are there any plans in the works, or has there been discussion by groups, indivisible groups around the country, of planning a Million American March for the Constitution? Maybe you bill it as we are indivisible. I don't know, but I think so many people are so outraged and feel so helpless. And sure, yeah, I can go down to the courthouse in Albuquerque, is where I'm calling from, and hold up my sign and be impassioned by my outrage. But man, it would be something for the world to see too. Gosh, to have a Million American March on DC. I want to say million veteran, because my husband and I are both veterans as well, and we're outraged at what's happening with the VA cuts. But more than that, how about a Million American March? Is there anything in the works? Is there any discussion about that?
That's what's planned for April 5th.
That is April.
Indivisible and 5051 are pushing everyone that can get to DC to go there. If you can't get to DC, I just put a link in the chat that says Indivisible Hands Off Find/host event.
Yeah.
And you can use that to find the nearest event to you. And so that's what we're doing on April 5th, is a mass mobilization of every Indivisible group, every 5051 group, to get everybody out there in the streets.
And I want to point out that the local protests are there for the people that can't go all the way to DC.
Of course.
And so we have a main one in DC, and then we have them all over the country so that people all over can get out and become involved. I do think the idea of having a singular huge protest in DC is a good idea. But other than the April 5th event, I am not aware of one specifically planned in the way that, some of the other marches have been. but it wouldn't surprise me that as the protests gain momentum and get bigger and bigger, that there wouldn't be a call for everybody to go to Washington.
Very good. Thank you.
Cindy?
I just wanted to say a couple of things real quick in that Senator Hickenlooper had a town hall with our Colorado Attorney General, Phil Weiser, which was really great because they could tell us right then and there how many lawsuits Colorado had enjoined in the courts against Trump and how many were successful. And that gave me kind of an idea of things that have worked. And that was a good feeling. And also, the one thing that I keep trying to keep in mind is that if there had been a government shutdown, the only guardrail there is for Trump right now is the courts. The courts would have shut down. And then what would have happened? So I've been thinking about that. And I guess that's it.
Thank you, Cindy. Kirby?
Hey, so I wanted to just bring up this idea. I wanted to propose an initiative that was brought up by Simon Rosenberg on his Substack, The Hopium Chronicles. And so it's going to be less than a minute. So I'll bring that up and then I have a question at the end. So basically, so it could have immediate impact in helping the executive defend what's left of the Constitution, which, as we discussed, is not much, if anything at all. But right now, statements against Trump's unconstitutional actions by Democrats have been scattered and reactive. So the idea is that it could be incredibly important to have a unified historical document, a so-called letter to America, signed by as many Democrats as we could get in the House and Senate, clearly stating Trump's abuses, just as the Declaration of Independence outlined grievances against tyranny in this country's past. It would not only serve as a rallying cry for voters and protests, but could be used as a crucial legal tool for amicus briefs, establishing a congressional record that courts could refer to when weighing Trump's violations of constitutional law. To be brief, I won't provide it now, but I have a sample letter and reasoning to give context to this. So my questions are, based on this quick little intro I gave, would Solidarity Warriors potentially be interested in this? And if so, are there any meetings set up with representatives where we could add this onto an agenda, or would Solidarity Warriors be interested in sending this out as an action item, that is, call our reps and urge them to sign a formal and historical document such as this? Maybe this requires more email correspondence with either Tiffany or Morgan, but just bringing it up here.
Thank you, Kirby. I just put my email in the chat if you would send me more information on that.
Okay, great, thanks.
I'm interested in that idea. I think from a historical perspective, something like the January 6th Commission, and if somebody were able to pull everything together into one paper for people to sign, would be very important. I would be interested in that.
Okay, great. I'll email action at Solidarity Warriors with the stuff I compiled. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I want to wrap it up just by reiterating that Solidarity Warriors, along with 5051, Indivisible Colorado, Indivisible National, we are organizing a mass protest in Denver on the west steps of the Capitol on Saturday, April 5th. At noon. It'll be from noon to 4 p.m. We will have speakers and there will be a big march.
Hey, Tiffany, I think Cindy had her hand up. Just one more.
Oh, sorry, Cindy. Go ahead. You're muted.
No, I think I'm fine. I think I just didn't lower my hand.
Okay.
Morgan, would you like to add anything?
No, I think everything is pretty well covered. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week and on April 5th.
All right. Well, thank you for a wonderful meeting and a wonderful discussion. And I hope you all have a great night.
Thank you.